Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the Cozy Mystery Quartet. I'm Linda Hope Lee, joined by Wendy Kendall, Susan McCormick, and M.L. Erdahl. In this segment, we'll discuss the use of humor in a cozy. Of course, murder, or whatever crime is featured, is a serious subject. Even though cozies avoid the graphic detail included in other mysteries, the narrative that concerns the crime can be intense. Inserting humor, also known as comic relief, offers the reader a break, a time to relax the tension with a chuckle or a laugh. In my cozies, the secondary characters provide most of the humor. In creating these people, I endow them with characteristics, opinions, and goals different from one another. This structure will encourage conflict, which I then present in a humorous way. Here's a snippet from Murder Between the Pages, featuring managing librarian Nina Foster's staff. In this scene, which follows the intense drama of discovering the murder victim and enduring police interrogation, Nina returns to the library hoping to relax. Instead, she encounters a well-meaning, although not always congenial, staff. "You look stressed," Larry Hardesty observed. "What an ordeal you've been through." "I am in shock." Nina ran a hand over her forehead. Arlette Robbins stood with hands on her hips. "Can we cheer you up? Did you hear the one about the football team in the sauna?" Larry frowned. "Arlette, if I hear one more of your offensive jokes, I'll nail you for harassment." Nina sighed as a staff problem reared its head. Despite her grandmotherly appearance, Arlette's joke repertoire came straight from the locker room. But shortly after that, harmony is restored as the two come together in comforting Nina and hearing about her experience. In Secrets to Die For, Book 2 in the series, a subplot centers on Nina establishing a library in the retirement home where her grandmother lives. A committee of residents assists her. In addition to helping Nina solve the mystery, these quirky characters provide comic relief. Again, I endowed them with attributes that would encourage conflict. Here's a segment from one of their meetings. Mabel waved her pendant watch. "Oh my, I see it's time for my date." "Date?" Lily stared. "Who with? I thought I was the only one around here with a man." Mabel giggled. "With Jeffrey Richards. He's the doctor in that new show on Channel 17. He is so handsome." Selma folded her arms. "Oh, you mean a TV date, not a date with a real man." Mabel patted her hair. "The best kind. I don't have to cook for him or clean up after him. I can just sit there and admire him." Yes, I like to include humor in my cozies. Humor provides comic relief for me as well as for my characters. Susan, tell us how you use humor in your stories.
Thank you, Linda. Gritty is not a word you'd ever use to describe a cozy murder mystery. Cozies are often described as lighthearted and humorous. It's one of their typical features, and one found in all 4 of our books. Humor provides relief to the suspense, clues, and crime solving, and increases reader enjoyment. Cozies are just plain fun. The humor can come in many forms. Sometimes the main sleuth is a seemingly bumbling detective, like Columbo in the old TV show, or eccentric, like the detective played by Daniel Craig in the recent movie Knives Out. Crazy situations and misadventures provide humor. In my book, The Fog Ladies, one of the characters steals newspapers from her neighbors and binges on promotional grande lattes from Starbucks, and this gets tied up in her attempted murder. Quirky side characters and even pets allow for humor. Each of the Fog Ladies have their own spunky personality, from a horoscope enthusiast to a holier-than-thou preacher, and an energetic Bichon Frise with a penchant for investigating with his teeth plays a large role in the humor and story denouement as well. Here is a truncated scene where 80-year-old Enid Carmichael discovers Starbucks. The next morning, Mrs. Carmichael was delighted to find another Starbucks coupon in the Saturday newspaper. Who knew these lattes were so good? She walked straight down to Union Street, tearing out the coupon on her way. When she returned to the building, she glanced at the newspapers on the table in the lobby, then took a second look. What was this? 3A. Mrs. Bridges' newspaper. Mrs. Bridge certainly had no need for a newspaper. She was dead. Her sister must have forgotten to stop her subscription. She picked up the newspaper and tucked it under her arm. She'd already had her latte, but why let a perfectly good coupon go to waste? She went back to the coffee house that afternoon. She strode in like she'd been doing it all her life. She walked right up to the counter, no timid looking at the menu for her. Grande latte, whole milk, 2 sugars. She placed her coupon on the counter. The cashier smiled. Back again, huh? Mrs. Carmichael might have to take more notice of these girls behind the counter if they were going to remember her. There might be a rule about how many coupons one person could use. These young girls all look the same to her. Long, straight hair, black pants, clear skin, and smiles. Better try not to go to the same girl too many times. She sat at a small table to drink her coffee. The coffee tasted delicious, hot and bitter and sweet. And the froth. Mrs. Carmichael could drink these all day. The more she thought about it, the more indignant she became. Why should they charge $3.65 for coffee? Coffee used to be 10 cents. Mrs. Carmichael couldn't afford $3.65 for coffee, not on her fixed income, especially if she wanted more than one a day. And she did. Mrs. Carmichael thought these Starbucks coupons were akin to drug dealers hanging around the schools, giving out free samples to get the youth of America hooked. Well, Mrs. Carmichael was hooked. Michael, what can you tell us about the humor in your book?
Thanks, Susan. Humor is one of the hardest things to tackle in any form of writing. What is funny to me isn't always funny to you and vice versa. I'm a big fan of satire, while my wife can't stop giggling at a well-executed pun. Similar to Linda, I like to use my supporting cast of characters to bring in comic relief. For example, Roxy, the Southern chef and hostess, uses her charm and delicious foods to put guests at ease. However, she's actually an actress from Canada who likes to mess around with accents and found she received great reviews when she adopted her Southern character. Olivia, my main character Crystal's best friend, is bubbly and fun, and vicariously enjoys the ludicrous situations Crystal finds herself in. Situational humor, the type of humor you'll find in sitcoms, is often the most rewarding. Pulling an example from the first part of my book, Winter Takes All, Crystal bluffs her way into a position as a wilderness guide, a position she isn't entirely qualified for. Her first assignment is to lead a snowshoe trip into the mountains with another guide. Crystal, thinking swiftly, decides she can't buy snowshoes at her new workplace since she just told her new boss that she was an expert snowshoer. She drives to the nearest outdoor store and purchases a pair from a good-looking salesman. She plies the guy for all the tips and tricks he's willing to share to give herself a chance at pulling off her charade. The next day, she meets the other guy, who just happens to be the same salesman who helped her the previous day and who happens to know she has never been snowshoeing in her life. To further compound her discomfort, Crystal is a terrible spontaneous liar, and when she's caught in a situation like this, she sinks rather than swims. Consistent traits such as this make the characters endearable and quirky. Wendy, how do you handle humor in Cat Out of the Bag?
Really? Humor in a murder mystery? That's a laugh. Or is it? Especially when it's a cozy mystery, much of the story is a slice of life, and humor is most certainly a natural part of life. Even in a sad situation, do you ever find yourself laughing, although you don't want to? And it's okay. In fact, it's a relief. Sometimes the contrast of humor makes the scene more vivid in a reader's imagination. At the beginning of Cat Out of the Bag, Catherine Watson is in a chaotic scene where the murdered mayor has been discovered at the end of her Purse Museum gala opening. Guests are panicked. Police are investigating. Catherine is in shock over the brutal loss of her friend. She's almost hit by an arriving squad car at the curb and ends up in a mud puddle in her sequin dress to save herself. A man kneeled next to her in the mud, leaning close. "Are you all right, miss? Are you okay? Do you think you can move?" Catherine's first thought was, "That's a big gun," as she stared ahead at the sidearm in the holster hanging from his belt. The unexpected can be funny. As a mystery author, I enjoy the element of surprise, whether in plot or in fun. I also enjoy words, the sound of them, the rhythm, and I love playing with them when it fits. For example, Catherine Watson adopted a stray alley cat and named her Purrada, a play on words that especially purse lovers would catch with a chuckle. But of course, not all my word plays are about purses. Just like in life, variety is the tasty spice. The humor in a book should vary in type and punchline. Otherwise, it could grow tedious. Characters whose personalities are humorous are a great contrast. They're different than the normal, the expected. They're not trying to be funny, they take themselves and their actions as their normal. I write several characters with quirks. One, who has been a reader favorite, is Catherine's mother, Moon Java. She named herself when she plunged her full personality into the culture and philosophy of the 1960s flower children. She still lives that lifestyle today. She's a great contrast to her international designer daughter, who calls her not Mom, but MJ. The message on MJ's phone can coax a reader's smile, especially when this recording is what Catherine hears when she calls for help during a dire situation. Hello, it's Moon Java, followed by music, and all we are is dust in the wind. Life's too short, brothers and sisters. Dust in the wind. That is my message to you, friend. Now, please leave me a message and experience the beauty of reaching out to another. Beep. A thank you to all our listeners, and that's no joke. Next time, we'll talk about writing subplots. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.